According to a U.S. intelligence agency, the government of country A conducts the most aggressive espionage operation against the U.S. of any U.S. ally. A defense intelligence report said Israel has a voracious appetite for information and, quote, the Israelis are motivated by strong survival instincts which dictate every facet of their political and economic policies. It aggressively collects military and industrial technology, and the U.S. is a high priority target. The document concludes, quote, Israel possesses the resources and technical capability to achieve its collection objectives.
Evidence that Israelis had been forewarned several hours before the attack surfaced at an Israeli instant messaging service known as Audigo. This story, clear evidence of Israeli prior knowledge, was reported only briefly in the U.S. media and quickly forgotten. At least 2 Israeli-based employees of Audigo received warnings of an imminent attack in New York City more than 2 hours before the first plane hit the World Trade Center. Audigo had its U.S. headquarters 2 blocks from the World Trade Center. The Audigo employees, however, did not pass the warning on to the authorities in New York City, a move that could have saved thousands of lives. Audigo has a feature called People Finder that allows users to seek out and contact others based on certain demographics, such as Israeli nationality. 2 weeks after 9/11, Alex Diamandis, Audigo's vice president, reportedly said, quote, it was possible that the attack warning was broadcast to other Audigo members, but the company has not received reports of other recipients of the message, unquote. The internet address of the sender was given to the FBI, and 2 months later it was reported that the FBI was still investigating the matter. There have been no media reports since. Audigo, like many Israeli software companies, is based and has its research and development, or R&D center, in Herzliya, Israel, a small town north of Tel Aviv, which happens to be where Mossad's headquarters are located. Shortly after 9/11, Audigo was taken over by Comverse Technology, another Israeli company. Within a year, 5 executives from Comverse were reported to have profited by more than $267 million from insider trading. Through Israeli venture capital investment funds, Mossad spawns and sponsors scores of software companies currently doing business in the United States. These Israeli-based companies are sponsored by Mossad funding sources such as Cedar Fund, Stage 1 Ventures, Veritas Venture Partners, and others. As one might expect, the portfolios of these Mossad-linked funding companies contain only Israeli-based companies, such as Audigo. The Israeli company Audigo provided 2 hours advance warning to people on a buddy list. In addition to the Audigo early warning, it is reported that the Tokyo branch of Goldman Sachs also released a memo on 10th September 2001 that warned its employees to steer clear of any American government buildings. Even if one believes that 19 hijackers, not from Iraq, Iran, or Afghanistan, but Saudi Arabia, were responsible for the events of September 11th, it would seem wise for us to at least hold the airport security responsible for letting those men board the planes. The airport security was handled by an Israeli company called ICTS. Ezra Harel, a Jew, is the owner. The company is registered in the Netherlands and was employed at Charles de Gaulle Airport to screen passengers boarding U.S. planes. Most of its personnel are ex-Shin Bet officers. The company covers security at Boston's Logan Airport, where the American Airlines plane came down after flight attendants and passengers overpowered Richard Reed. You might recall Reed as the man with the shoe bomb. ICTS knew he was dangerous, but allowed him to board a flight from Tel Aviv to Paris. Well, did ICTS know that he was dangerous? Or is their security just that shoddy? ICTS's own website states that it sells services to every airport from which the hijacked planes on 9/11 operated, including security services, and this is sometimes done through wholly owned subsidiaries like Huntley USA Corporation. It has been suggested that the incredible feat of hijacking 4 aircraft without a single arrest at the gate would require the resources of a nation-state. This is even more true with the revelation that at least one gun had managed to board a hijacked plane. One company had automatic inside access to all of the airports from which hijacked planes departed on 9/11, and to the airports used by Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, an Israeli company, one that Mossad agents could easily find employment with without the management knowing who they were or what their purpose really was. As an additional note to ICTS's complicity, hours before the House version of the first so-called Patriot Act went to a vote, technical corrections, quote-unquote, were inserted into the body of the legislation whereby foreign security companies, such as ICTS International, would be immune from lawsuits related to the events of 9/11. Talk about not being available for deposition. This Patriot Act legislation sleight of hand occurred before the inception of the 9/11 Commission, when fearless leader George W. Bush was still resisting the very idea of an investigation into 9/11. Hence, in the face of an institutional cover-up, citizens were denied the possibility of a discovery process which is normally afforded to litigants. Without such discovery process, ICTS International would never be compelled by a court of law to give testimony and show evidence related to the missing airport video surveillance tapes of 9/11 or any other aspect of security measures in place on 9/11. A few quotes to digest.
Evidence linking these Israelis to 911 is classified. I cannot tell you about evidence that has been gathered. It's classified information. But investigators within the DEA, INS, and FBI have all told Fox News that to pursue or even suggest Israeli spying through Converse is considered career suicide.
While an Israeli real estate magnate from Australia insured his 99-year lease on the retail space of the World Trade Center against terrorism, one of Israel's biggest companies pulled out of the North Tower just days before September 11th. Zim American Israeli Shipping Company, Incorporated, broke the lease when it vacated the rented offices on the 16th and 17th floors of the North Tower of the World Trade Center shortly before the September 11th disaster. According to intelligence, Zim's World Trade Center office space had been leased until the end of the year, and the company lost $50,000 when it suddenly pulled out in the beginning of September. The parent company, Zim Israel Navigation Company, is nearly half owned by the State of Israel, the other half held by Israel Corp. Zim is one of the world's largest container shipping companies, operating an international network of shipping lines. The Israeli company's move out of the World Trade Center 1 week before the attacks saw the forfeiture of $50,000 in broken lease fees. Zim has since moved part of its operations to Houston, Texas. FBI agent Mike Dick aggressively investigated this Israeli ring before and after 9/11. Like another investigator by the name of O'Neill, Mike soon found himself removed from his duties on the orders of the then head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division, Michael Chertoff, a dual citizen of Israel. Dick was very suspicious when Israeli movers quickly moved Zim American Israeli Shipping Company out of its 10,000 square feet of office space on the 17th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center, and subsequent forfeiture of a $50,000 security deposit when they vacated 1 week prior to 9/11. According to a CIA non-official cover or NOC source or NOC source who worked with Dick, Israeli movers moved explosives into the 17th floor office space after Zim moved out. After 9/11, Dick, as well as the CIA NOC, were harassed by their superiors on orders from above. Those orders came from the Jew Michael Chertoff. Dick was first relieved of his primary counter-espionage duties, eventually sent to Pakistan to investigate the kidnapping of Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl, and eventually buried in a desk job at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. According to the CIA source, Pearl was murdered because he was getting too close to the money trail that financed 9/11. The CIA source said, quote, "The same group that beheaded Pearl in Pakistan did the beheadings in Iraq," unquote. The source added that the beheadings were not Al-Qaeda. The CIA source, who emphasized his past Republican credentials, emphasized that Al-Qaeda was merely a list of arms dealers, mercenaries, drug dealers, financiers, and terrorists used by the CIA and Saudis during the Afghan Mujahideen war against the Soviets. The source also iterated that all the 9/11 hijackers had fake IDs. During a joint CIA-FBI operation against lead hijacker Mohammed Atta in Fort Lee, New Jersey, in 2000, the CIA and FBI team leaders complained to their superiors that their operation was being photographed by Israeli agents, thus compromising the the operation. The CIA source affirmed that the Israelis in New Jersey were providing cover